Today I'm going to show you guys the best press handstand drills and exercises. We're going to do them freestanding. I'm going to show variations against the wall. So we're going to cover all levels. I'm going to move fast, so hold on tight. I'm going to start with the easier variations and slowly make them harder and harder. Now, first of all, we need to make sure we're doing something for the bottom of the press and the top of the press. So the bottom of the press is more flexibility and conditioning. So I need to make sure that I'm not like this and I'm more like this. So I have less weight in my toes, more weight in my hands, upper back. Now, a lot of that is flexibility. So if I struggle to do this and I'm more like this, then it's going to be a struggle to do the press handstand. It's not impossible because I could use strength to go up instead of flexibility, but whatever level you're at, increasing your flexibility, your forward fold position, your straddle pancake position is going to make things much easier to get your press. And then just the conditioning itself of this position, so making sure that you can hold here for time, ideally have a conversation. Most people are going to look like this to start with, have way too much weight backwards and not be able to get right up on top of their tippy toes, and ideally on top of their tippy toes where their hands and feet are closer together. Then we need to be conditioning and increasing our balance at the top of the press handstand, which is our freestanding handstand position. Now, obviously, just doing a freestanding hold is one element of that, or you could be working towards it by just conditioning this position and learning how to pull from the wall and increase that balance window, both back to wall and chest to wall drills. But whatever you're doing, increasing the balance window and the time you can hold in this position, the easier it is going to be to catch at the top of that press handstand. Then we need to think about conditioning the pathway of the press. So starting on tiptoes in that bottom position, coming up, passing through straddle and going to our straight handstand. Now today I'm focusing on the straddle press. The pike press and the tuck press are very similar, but most people will work towards a straddle press first. Now we can look at that pathway in three different ways. We can do an eccentric, so we start in the top and then we pass through and land on our tiptoes. Now obviously that's going to come up later on because that's a harder progression, but we can do that same pathway back up but using a jump instead of a press. So same setup, I come up onto tiptoes. Now to get the momentum and energy, I bend the knees, keeping the shoulders on top of the hands, jump, pass through the straddle, go to straight handstand. Now if you don't have that, freestanding, we do exactly the same thing up against the wall. So shoulders on top of hands, focal point between the fingers, up into that position, so light toes, bend the knees, keep the weight in the hands, jump, pass through straddle, use the wall if I need to. And then ideally you come down back through that pathway as well, and then you could go for another rep. Now if that's clunky or challenging, or we just want to condition the pathway a little bit more, another good drill is laying on your back on the floor, place your hands against the wall, and then I'm going to pass through that pathway, so through the straddle, see if I can get my tiptoes to the wall while keeping my hip as low as possible. I don't want to have a high hip here because that's unrealistic to how we want to be in the press. We don't want our hip and our shoulders and our head going too far away from each other. We want to compress as much as we can through that range of motion. Now this can be a little bit clunky through the hip because the hip can't go backwards because the floor's in the way, but it's a great drill to help you understand the flow or the pathway that the feet and the legs have to make. And also it highlights if you do this, then when you do that in the press or the jump, it's going to kick you out backwards. So we want to try and compress that position as much as possible. Now the jumps are good to help you understand the pathway, but they're not great to increase our time under tension. So to really condition and strengthen that pathway, we need to slow it down as much as possible. So most people will need to go to the wall for this. Now there's another prerequisite we need to do before we start doing an eccentric wall press. We need to make sure that we can take our shoulders forwards towards the wall. So I'm going to externally rotate my hands, have them quite close to the wall to start with, so it's not too hard on the wrists and shoulders. I'm going to kick into handstand against the wall, and then I'm going to push high and into the wall with the shoulders. Now this might feel a bit scary. If you're not used to it, take your head to the wall to start with and come back off. So we might just need to condition this first. Once you've got that and you can push hard into the wall, then we can start coming down through the straddle. Now watch what happens to the butt, low back. So it starts to turn over now, low back goes towards the wall harder, mid back, upper back, and then I land on tiptoes and hold. What we don't want to do there is we don't want to drop or fall through that pathway. So we might need to fine tune that position and really feel and understand how you have to slowly peel the butt, then the low back, then the mid back, and then the upper back off the wall as you come down. What you don't want to happen is everything coming off the wall at once. So we don't want to be like this and come down like that. Then we can start to move that same exercise away from the wall, but to start with, there's an in-between. So I'm gonna kick up to the wall again, but I'm gonna be a little bit further away from the wall. Now when I pull off the wall, I'm actually in a freestanding handstand. I'm gonna open, and then when I get out to my straddle position, my butt's gonna touch the wall very lightly, then my low back's gonna touch the wall very lightly, then my mid back, upper back, until I land on tiptoes. So it's very similar to that first one. I've just moved it away from the wall a little bit, and we're just trying to touch very, very lightly as we come down through that pathway and get closer to the floor. Now that's much harder than laying on the wall and then peeling off the wall, but it's a great middle step to get you from the wall to the freestanding version. And then we need to have a go at that freestanding version. So same thing, kick up, straight position, open to straddle, turn the hip, low back, mid back, upper back, finish lightly on tiptoes. Then we can start looking at the concentric, so the going up to handstand. Now we can do this against the wall, same as before, externally rotate the hands. This is gonna need you to be a little bit further away from the wall. I'm gonna come in first, take the head to the wall, then I'm gonna guide in towards my shoulders, upper back, go up onto tiptoes, and then from there, I can push all the way up, and at the top, I'm gonna come off the wall into that position, and I could pull into a balanced handstand. And then I could go back to the wall and repeat through that eccentric, peel the low back, mid back, upper back off, land on tiptoes. Now that one can be quite challenging on the wrists, the shoulders, so be careful, and if it starts to hurt the wrist, back off, go closer to the wall or miss that drill out. And remember, I might be making these drills look easy. I can press already, so they're gonna look quite different when someone who can't press tries the drills. Then we can look at partial range press handstand. So the partial range press just means we're gonna raise the feet up and use that to help us to get up where we might not be able to get up off the floor yet. So obviously I can get up again from that height. You might not be able to when you first start, so we need to keep increasing the height. So I'd recommend you actually start lower, test it first. Now there is one thing that's gonna happen is as you raise the feet up, your feet are gonna come through the pathway. So the higher our box is, the wider our feet need to be. Because remember, the pathway starts there, lifts up, our feet go out to the side. So if I need this much height, the boxes need to be this wide apart. And you can position the boxes so they're close to the wall like this. So if you do go over in your handstand, so if you do get up and go over, you've got the wall to help catch you if you need to and practice that balance. And then you could even try a partial range eccentric back down again, trying to kiss the toes very, very light. Now I wouldn't recommend you use these P-bars just because it's a very small surface area, but it's an easy way for me to show you at this height. I'd use those plyo wooden boxes if you have them, or something bigger and more stable. So let me put it this way so you can see what happens. Now if you screenshot a video from the side when you do this, you should make sure that it looks like you're in the right place. So if my feet look like this on the box, you can see now that I can't go up. It doesn't matter what I do, I can't push up. But watch what happens now when I bring the hip more on top and the shoulders in the correct position to make the feet look like they're light, and then I can go up. So a lot of people might be able to go up at a lower height, but they've actually positioned themselves incorrectly and they've just got way too much weight backwards instead of having weight here. So do video yourself from the side and check out different positions, try different distances or whips apart with the boxes. And then when you're very close to the press, I'll just use something that gives you a little bit of momentum to get you going. So you might not be able to get off the floor there, but now if I go backwards and go forwards and up, then I might be able to pull myself into the position that's just giving myself a tiny bit of assistance just to rock into it. The other thing that can help as well is going lower. So if I'm in a squat type position and now I push up and forwards, that sort of makes me go in that right direction and just gives me a little bit of momentum to go through it. But obviously to use that drill, you need to be super close to the press. Now when you put all this together into some sort of program, if you're doing the partial range exercises, make sure you're doing something for the full range of motion as well. So make sure you're doing a jump or a nice clean eccentric that goes all the way to the floor. That means you get the full range of motion plus you do the partial range. You don't want to just do the partial range because you're only training half the movement. So partial range, something for the full range, something to condition that bottom position. So making sure we're hanging out here, doing little straddle hops, scissors, something down there, and also something for that hold at the top. I'm assuming that all of you are still working balance anyway, especially if you're working press handstand. Now that was super quick, so hopefully that helped you out. If you do have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. If you'd like a program for your press handstand, check out my app, link is in the description, or check out the website, www.paultwyman.com.au. I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks guys.